I brought you back in here after you acted like that to listen to you. And then you're not going to listen to a thing.
One will be addressing bond when time's appropriate. And then also, recently I was reviewing this case, saw on the body cam, we didn't have a different body cam. I requested that today. So we don't have all the discovery. I'm awaiting one more body cam video from a different date that is related to this incident. At this time, the people who said it's 25,000 without the 10%. In this case, the defendant has a companion case in misdemeanor court 1482 from 2024. It's a DV and assault with the same victim, and I believe her son. He also has a case out of Plymouth for a domestic violence with the same victim. And in this case, it is an FA with a knife in which he threatened the victim with the knife, took it out while they were arguing, pulled it out, brought it up, brought it down towards her. And while he was in custody from, I believe, 2-3 to 2-6, he made 135 calls to the victim, which was against the conditions of his bond, which was addressed at arraignment. We have great concerns for her safety as he keeps contacting her and getting new cases for domestic violence with the same victim. And we would be asking that at this time his bond is set at 25,000 without the 10% into custody, Your Honor.
Response.
Okay. Regarding the actual charge, I did review the discovery myself. The evidence is solely the testimony of the complaining witness. There has not been any evidence of a knife. Regarding the phone calls, my client does deny all of those allegations. We have not received a violation report to discuss that with him. I was going to ask for an adjournment because we have not been able to speak about this case. I was going to ask for a week adjournment so we can go through the evidence and possibly at that point we can, address bond again at that hearing.
But he's indicating that calls were not made from the jail?
He's saying it was not him making the call. He did not make any calls to the complaining witness.
And I believe they were from his PIN to her number stated in the police report. And given that he already has multiple other cases with this victim, I have great concerns that he would still be contacting her out of custody.
I would ask, he is, your phone was on. My phone. Oh, the phone that I gave you, the iPad. It is my understanding that he is gainfully employed. He is a father. I would ask if he is, he can remain out on bond with a tether.
20th, 2025, 9 a.m. I'll adjourn it out 1 week.
Would we be provided with the calls?
Yes, I'll send those out I'll send the email to have those released today.
I'm going to set his bond at $25,000 cash surety as the amount. What was his bond set at initially? Personal?
I believe it was the 25,000 with the 10%. And then the other case, he got a nominal $100 bond on the mistaken case.
All right. So defendant's going to be remanded. He'll need to post that. And then at this point, defendant's phone privileges, given what the court has heard, are revoked so that he'll go into the jail. He won't have phone privileges. This is the court's intention. And then you can get those through with your client, and we can figure it out next week. At this point, defendant's remanded.
Yes.
Court does call the case People versus Brandon Carter. I'll recall the matter of the People versus Rashad Young.
As and on behalf of the people.
Oh, there you are. Okay, I didn't know where you were at. It's like,
Ashley Moulton on behalf of Mr. Young.
yes, and Mr. Young, he was taken into custody, transported down. He is not here. I'm not bringing him back up only because my understanding is the alleged victim wanted to address the court. So we could get her. Your name?
Tondiana Yates.
All right. Ma'am, I'm going to let you know, if it weren't for the people in the prosecutor's office and counsel, I wouldn't be calling your case back up and you probably would have been locked up. I'm just going to let you know because you don't come into the court that way, ever. Am I clear?
Yes.
What did you want to tell the court, ma'am?
Okay, first I want to say I fully apologize for coming in here like that. I was unaware. I'm sorry. I just want you to know with this whole case, instead of incarcerating somebody,
Go ahead.
y'all need to try to help him. I don't know if the prosecutor let you guys know, but he has yes, I'm sorry. You can talk. I don't want to overtalk you.
Well, you'll never do that, but I'm just going to let you know that I'm not going to sit here. You wanted to address something to the
Yes,
court.
because I felt like it was inaccurate.
I will listen to you. I'm not going to tell you or have you sit here and try to give me a lecture on how something should work.
Oh, no, I would never do that. But I just noticed when I was looking on the Zoom that it was inaccurate information stated on you guys' record. And I just fully disagree when inaccurate information is stated on something that's very important like this. With the prosecutors, they should have called me instead of giving out inaccurate information because I would have just let you guys know. Instead, when I looked on that Zoom, it was inaccurate information stated on this, I don't know what you call, in this courtroom. And I just fully disagree with that. So I wanted to make that known.
Okay, let me just say this because you kind of blurted that out when you had come busting in here.
And my apologies for
So let me just tell you so that you can understand what you're saying and what is being said. Because when you said that, which is everybody's obligation here, his counsel, the prosecutor, and even in some respects the court, to double check what somebody is saying, in particular if a decision was made based upon inaccurate information. Let me tell you that the prosecutor, as with her duty, checked what you were saying. I don't think, at least preliminarily, and I discussed it with his counsel and with the prosecutor, that what you're saying is correct, that it was inaccurate. At least with reference to what I was using for my decision on the remand. There will be a hearing that will be set next week. At that hearing, all of that will come out. But at least preliminarily, it does not look like the information that was presented to the court was in any way inaccurate. Some of the information with reference to the date, so that you understand, the court itself can tell in looking at the file and when he was arraigned. So while you may have your position that it's inaccurate, I do not believe at this time that it is inaccurate.
Okay, so is there any way that a prosecutor, someone can call my phone so we can discuss this? Because I no longer have that cell phone number and it's to my sibling. You guys stated on.
If there are references to the case, ma'am, we thought about that.
Okay.
If there are references to the case, references to you, references to other things that are occurring. So I don't think, and I said, I have not made a final decision on it, certainly, but at least preliminarily, what is being represented to the court appears to be true. And we will flush it out at a hearing because that's the way our system works. Preliminarily, I have that. I took what remedies need to be done to enforce the orders of the court regarding no contact. It seems that that was violated. He will have his due process right to a hearing next week regarding that.
But how is it violated when I have not physically talked to him? Just like when I came into the courtroom the first time and I sat down, he made it aware that I can't even be around him.
I am not going to have a hearing on it right now. I will listen to you.
That's just that was just very inaccurate to me. And I just felt like the way that y'all did that was no. Somebody should have.
Y'all did what? Don't you turn your back on me because I'm telling you what, you are trying my patience.
No.
You are trying my patience. I brought you back in here after you acted like that to listen to you. And then you're not going to listen to a thing I said. I'm done. If you want to attend the hearing next week, you can come to the hearing. I've tried to explain it. You are not listening. I am done. Do not say another word to me. Mr. Allen, remove her.
Nobody.
Remove her. You keep talking and there's going to be a problem. There's going to be a problem.
If I may, Your Honor, Lauren Brown, Deputy Chief Public Defender, we did speak about that. She expects to have that today, and we think that that'll give plenty of time for us to be prepared for it. Exactly. The one works for us. We'll be ready.
It's one body cam.
I believe so, Your Honor.
Okay. There won't be an adjournment of this proceeding if that's not available, but I'll set it. Will people have their witnesses available the 4th?
We'll do our best, Your Honor.
Preliminary examination in person, March 4th, 2025, 9 a.m. before Judge Perry. Continue.
May I?
Oh, maybe not. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Your Honor, as you probably recall, last week we addressed this defendant's phone privileges. After those were revoked, he then continued to call the victim at a different number that we have under her name as well. He called her, I believe, 23 times. There were some under his own PIN, and then after the first day he was in custody, he started using other inmates' PINs to continue to contact the victim in this case. So we have great concerns still that he is still continuing to contact her against court orders.
Your Honor, may we approach?
Yes. All right. Record should reflect we had a bench conference in this case. Okay. Go ahead. Anything?
Yeah, may I also address, our client has a job interview on the 24th of February and at 11 a.m. And we were wondering if you would able to either give a PR bond or a tether to allow him to go to the job interview.
Well, here's part of the problem with this case, and I'll certainly let the people respond. This case came to my attention for various reasons. There was a hearing, really a hearing, but I heard from the alleged victim in the case. And then upon getting more information, it seems that the parties did not stop contact upon this case and may have even appeared at court together on the date that they were here. Further, the defendant got remanded in part because of phone conversations, then gets remanded this time and still can't follow the court's order. So I'm not going to change his bond. You can certainly after prelim make the argument before Judge Perry, but I'm not changing anything regarding his bond. He'll just remain there, and his phone privileges are revoked, but he's still trying to have contact. So, motion for bond reduction denied. Got to follow the court's orders.
Your Honor.
Thank you, Your Honor.
What's our next?
Ms. Collier?
In today's courtroom breakdown, we witness one of the most intense hearings we've seen in a long time. This case isn't just about a single accusation, it's about a growing pattern of danger, defiance, and courtroom tension that erupts into a dramatic showdown. At the center of it all stands a defendant facing allegations of a felony assault with a knife, a long history of domestic violence, and more than 100 alleged phone call violations while in custody. And when you add a frustrated judge, a distressed victim, and a prosecutor warning of escalating danger, the outcome becomes anything but predictable. The hearing begins with the prosecution laying out a timeline that paints a troubling picture. Not only is the defendant accused of brandishing a knife toward the victim, but he also has multiple past domestic violence cases involving the very same person. Prosecutors highlight in alarming detail 13-5 phone calls allegedly made from jail to the victim, despite a clear no-contact order. Each call represents a direct violation of the court's restrictions and raises serious concerns about the victim's safety. According to the prosecutor, even after being warned, the defendant allegedly continued calling using other inmates' PIN numbers. To the court, that signals intentional defiance, not misunderstanding. The defense, however, pushes back. They argue that the evidence consists solely of the victim's claims and that no physical knife was recovered. They challenge the allegations about the phone calls, insisting their client did not make them. They request more time to investigate, seeking an adjournment and asking the judge to consider bond alternatives like a tether or supervised release. But the judge has heard enough. The repeated alleged violations, the prior cases, and the risk to the victim weigh heavily. The judge increases the stakes, setting bond at $25,000 cash, revoking the defendant's phone privileges entirely, and ordering him remanded into custody. Just when the courtroom seems ready to move on, the situation escalates again. The victim unexpectedly appears, insisting the record contains inaccurate information. Her tone becomes emotional, and the judge quickly becomes impatient. What begins as an attempt to clarify spirals into a tense confrontation. The judge warns her once, then twice. When she turns away in frustration, the judge snaps, "Do not say another word. Remove her." It is a dramatic moment, the kind that reveals how quickly courtroom emotions can clash with courtroom procedure. The bailiffs escort her out as the room falls silent. As the hearing continues, more violations come to light, more calls, more attempts to reach the victim, more disregard for the court's orders. The judge stands firm. There will be no bond reduction and no special privileges. A preliminary examination date is set, and the defendant remains behind bars until then. This case is a powerful reminder of how legal decisions are shaped, not just by the charges themselves, but by patterns of behavior, compliance with court orders, and concerns for safety. And as the judge made clear today, repeated violations can turn an already serious situation into one with far more severe consequences.